This is Never Down, Never Out with T.R. Matson. This podcast is about discipline when motivation fades, resilience when things get hard, and showing up when quitting would be easier. No hype, no shortcuts, just the mindset required to build something real. One day at a time. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Never Down, Never Out. All right, episode 35. I like it. This morning I'm feeling pretty good, well rested. Got my Never Down, Never Out shirt on, feeling motivated. Gonna knock out the podcast, go hit the weights, get a workout done, and then spend some quality family time with the wife and kids and new puppy. So she's sleeping better. I'm excited about that. She does snore a little bit though, but that's okay. We probably all do. Appreciate all the feedback on everything. I didn't really identify it when I should have, but there was a lot of support after episode 30, and I really appreciate that. That was a big milestone, and I appreciate everybody who took advantage of the discount code, and all of that stuff should be out by now. If there's things that you see available, I'm really trying to revamp my merchandise this year. So if there's things you really like, I'm going to try to make it smaller, more directed, and not have just so much random stuff. So when certain merchandise like the bottle breachers and things like that go out of stock, they're probably not coming back. I do think I'll always have patches and coins just because that's a military thing. But if there's other things you have ideas for that you think would be good, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. I think, if there's a message that resonates with you, and frankly, Never Down, Never Out may be one if you're still listening after 34 episodes. I think having it in our daily environment helps. Anybody who follows me on Instagram or Twitter knows, my workout rig, I have a nameplate on the actual lifting rig that says Never Down, Never Out. That's there for a reason. That's for when I don't feel like working out. It kind of snaps me into it and helps me focus, whether that's at the beginning of a workout when it's cold, or maybe it's in the middle of a lift where I don't know if I can do another rep. So I found it works for me. If it works for you and there's something that you think you could use, drop it in the comments. I'll see what I could do. But again, I appreciate all the support. Moving on to episode 35, the power of non-negotiables. This one comes with a homework assignment, so get your pens out. Non-negotiables. What are they, first of all? Well, a non-negotiable to me is something that defines who I am at my core. So if it's a character trait in me that I'm not willing to sacrifice, whether it's, my morals or beliefs or whatever, for anybody. This is what makes up me. So, for me, there's things we talked about in the last episode, but there's things that I do every day, regardless, period. Doesn't matter where I am, whether that's making my bed or doing a little bit of movement, stretching. Sometimes that's just a byproduct of getting a little older and I have to get my joints moving before I start moving on with my day. Trying to drink water, reading, spending a minute reading a section of the Bible, something like that. Whatever yours is, they're very powerful in those, because what it does, we'll get to that, and then we'll talk about what I want you to do. So what these non-negotiables do is they define you for who you are, right? And we live in a world where social media, the news, our coworkers, our family members, everything's so loud. There's so much noise out there, and who saw the latest thing on social media and whether it was real or fake or blah, 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 blah. And it gets so old that it's so easy to get wrapped up in it. It is. And we all do it. And it's exhausting, frankly. I find it sometimes when I fly for the airlines, right? I mean, you go on a flight, and sometimes it's either a few day long trip or it's one particularly long flight, and you're sitting next to the same person for hours. And whatever they're passionate about, you're likely going to hear about. And I try not to do that too much, because I know that that is an easy thing to fall prey to. Recently, I was on a trip. It was a particularly long trip, which I usually try not to do, but it fit into my personal schedule. And I was walking to the plane, and somebody said, "Hey, do you have time for a fan?" And I didn't really understand what they meant, and I was like, "A fan of what?" And they're like, "The podcast." And I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And the guy I was flying with and my flight attendants were like, "Podcast." That was like day 3 of the trip, so I felt pretty good that I had kept the things that I'm passionate about. I don't shove them down other people's throats. But that being said, the things that you're passionate about are what make you up. Those are your non-negotiables. No matter what's going on in the world, no matter what's going on in your day, with your family, with your friends, those define you. So, what are they? Right? How do we figure out what our non-negotiables are? Well, you got to sit down and take some time and think about it. What are your beliefs? What are your values? What are your morals? What drives you in your decision making every day? And I think as we get older, those kind of shape themselves to where we even stop thinking about it. It's just, hey, this is who I am. But when we're younger, we kind of have to think through them, and it changes, right? I mean, who I am at 46 is not who I was at 26. Mainly because I didn't have kids and a family back then. I have things that mean more to me now than back then. So sometimes your non-negotiables are negotiable slightly, but you don't want to sell yourself out to fit in, or to make the day easier, because sometimes those non-negotiables cause the day to be more of a grind. Sometimes it's harder to do the right thing than it is to do the easy thing. And I saw this a lot in the military. One particular flight that I remember very vividly, and I won't tell the whole story because it doesn't really shine a positive light on some military leadership. But there was a situation where my friend and I were going flying at night, and the E2C at the time, we had the 8-bladed props. It had to do a bit test. It probably still does, I'm assuming. And it did a test before or after it started, because the propellers were electronically controlled device. The 4-blade that we used to fly was all mechanical, hydraulic. A lot of the 8-blade was electronic. So I'd had to do a test, which is not uncommon. I mean, when I went on to fly the Hornet, everything was a test. It was all electronic. So, and basically after you started the engine, you would see a light come on, and you'd give it a certain amount of time and the light would go out. And that meant that it passed the test, if I'm remembering correctly. And on this particular flight, the light didn't come on. Okay. Well, we looked at each other. We decided, all right, we're going to keep the engine running because it's okay to run the engine, but it's not okay to go fly with that. So then the next, moment we start the other engine, that light doesn't come on. Now, the likelihood of both of these tests failing independently of each other is not. I mean, statistically, it's probably close to impossible. The other fact about this is that if power had been applied, external power had been applied to the aircraft prior to the engine starting, and then the pilot shut the engines down and they did not reset the power, it wouldn't redo the test. Now, both my co-pilot and I were like, okay, clearly this plane had been started earlier today and they just didn't reset the power. That's the only reasonable explanation. So we asked maintenance, and maintenance looked into it, and they said no, that it hadn't been started today. And again, we're still sitting there like, there's no chance. Like, again, statistically impossible, or almost impossible for both of those systems to fail independently. But I made the call, and we called the aircraft down, and we didn't go fly. Now, I won't get into the part about the negative naval leadership that came from that. But the point I'm getting at is that was a non-negotiable for me. When I was an aircraft commander in the E2, the safety of my crew was paramount. That was my job. So I had to make the call. Was it an easy call to make? No. Did it make my day a lot harder and the subsequent days on the ship a lot harder? Yes, significantly. That being said, that was a non-negotiable for me. And there's a lot of power in that, because when I had to stand in front of my commanding officer and explain it over and over again, I knew that I could fall back on how I was trained and what was expected out of me as an aircraft commander. And that was my moral compass. That was my values. That was my priorities. You know, we used to say in the E2, as the aircraft commander, you had 51% of the vote when it came to safety of flight. Everybody gets a vote, but ultimately the buck stops with you. So that's an extreme example of a non-negotiable, but it was one that really stuck with me. Doing the right thing when it's not easier to do the right thing. That's tough. That's very tough. So what I want you to do, small to big. So think today, get a piece of paper, small to big, and think, okay, what are my non-negotiables? When I look myself in the mirror at the end of the day, brushing my teeth, and I want to be proud of who's looking back at me, what are my non-negotiables? Let's talk about the little things. Well, for me, it's making my bed, it's reading some scripture, it's doing a little bit of movement, it's drinking water. It's hugging my kids, telling them that I love them as much as I can, and telling my wife that I love her as much as I can, because I personally don't believe you can tell people that too much. Those are my small but important non-negotiables. And then build on that. Let's talk about, kind of medium ones. Well, I need to think about, for me, let me see if I can remember it. I've referred to it as my 4 F's, my faith, family, fitness, and finances, right? Those are my non-negotiables. Those are the things that govern my decision-making as we move forward, because personally for me, without my faith, I'm nothing. So I need that first. Family is number 2. I need to take care of my family. They're the most important thing in my life to me. They drive a lot of my decision-making. My fitness, well, I can't be there for my family if I don't stay in somewhat good health. And then finances, I need to provide for that family and make sure there's food on the table, there's a house over our heads, things like that. Those are non-negotiables, so when I see a shiny toy, or I want to go do something, or I want to, change something, does it fit into my 4 F's? If it doesn't, it sounds fun, but it's not going to happen. And then on the big scale of things, my non-negotiables are how I handle myself, what I believe is the difference between right and wrong, who I try to help, what I try to do, what I'm willing to take time out of my day for and what I'm not, what I try to focus on and what I don't. Those are my bigger non-negotiables and things like that. And if you can break those down for yourself, that is truly where you have the power. Because when the noise comes, when the chaos of life comes, when things are coming at you from all directions, you have the ability to look at this core value essentially, and you can get through the next minute, the next hour, the rest of your day, the rest of your week. And if you can do that, again, we talked earlier, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Sometimes it's like, hey, I just need to take 2 more steps forward. I don't know how I'm going to, but if I could just take 2 more steps forward, I've got a chance. I'm keeping my momentum going. But if you don't know who you are as a person, if you don't know what drives your values and what drives your motivation and what drives who you are, then how do you know what goals you want to achieve? How do you know what success you want? You don't, because you don't even know who you are. And the power with these non-negotiables is when life comes at you a million different ways, you never question who you are. Maybe today didn't go as well as it could. Maybe I didn't give my all when I should, but I'm still holding true to myself. And that's okay. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. But if I can hold true to myself at the end of the day and look myself in the mirror while I'm brushing my teeth, as my dad used to say, and not be disgusted by the person looking back at me, then I got a shot. Then tomorrow there's a shot. Maybe I need to work harder on things. Maybe I need to focus more on things. Maybe I need to be more productive and less busy. All those things we've talked about already. But as long as I can hold true to the things that make me me, then tomorrow there's a chance. But if you start giving away your core values, if you start giving away the things that make up you and what you're focused on, that's a very slippery slope to, very, very quickly down the line, you might not even recognize the person looking back at you. So I want you to take a moment today, write down some of those non-negotiables, find power in that, and put them in your phone, look at them every morning. Maybe that's one of your new habits that we talked about, where you're just going to review, hey, this is who I am today, and remind myself. Eventually it'll be committed to memory and you won't need to do that, but if it helps you get through the moment, it really does. So it helps me. The world is far too easy to conform to other people, to try to fit in, to try to be popular, all of these things. And what I've learned over time is none of it really matters. There's plenty of people I know that have huge social circles and are immensely popular, and they're very unhappy people. And there's other people I know that have very small, very loyal social circles. I believe somebody described me as loyal to a fault. I don't give out my loyalty, but if I do and I give it to you and you cross me, that's it. You're probably not getting it back. And there's people like that are very happy because they feel very confident in who they are and they trust the people around them to be the same. So let's work on that today. Again, I appreciate all the support. Let me know what you're looking for out of me. Give me some ideas that I can do to make things better for you. And let's go out there and just be good people and help those around us. Thanks. If this episode helped you, don't just listen, apply it. Progress is built in what you do after the message ends. Remember, never down, never out. I'll see you tomorrow.